Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the real estate world in Orlando. I'm your host, Kyle Madorin, and on this show, we're all about pulling back the curtain with the unfiltered truth about real estate. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to provide concierge-style service because everyone loves being treated like a VIP. This podcast is your go-to resource for transparency, integrity, and the knowledge you need to make smarter real estate decisions. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time homebuyer, we've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready to move up in the world of real estate. It's time for Real Estate on the Up. Welcome to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of real estate and spotlight the professionals driving its evolution. Today, we're thrilled to welcome a standout figure in Central Florida's real estate scene, Vinny Cordaro. As the founder and leader of the Living in Orlando, Florida team at Keller Williams, Vinny has made a significant impact in the Orlando market. In the past year alone, he successfully closed about 24 transactions, making him a top performer in this marketplace. Vinny's approach is rooted in a client-first philosophy, emphasizing transparency, honesty, and personalized service. His dedication to making the real estate journey smooth and stress-free has earned him a stellar reputation among clients and peers alike. Beyond real estate, Vinny's a passionate community member based in Claremont. Join us as we delve into Vinny's journey, his strategies for success in the competitive Orlando market, and his vision for the future of real estate in Central Florida. So let's welcome him to the show. Here he is, Vinny Cordaro.
Well, hey, thanks so much for having me. That's one crazy introduction that I definitely would never have written for myself. So thanks. I'm honored to be here.
Well, you deserve it. You know, so many times in this business as agents, we feel like there's so much more to accomplish, that our goals are, we're setting the bar high, so we still have a lot to do. And sometimes it takes looking back and having someone else acknowledge your accomplishments before you realize really what you've done. And so you've certainly had a terrific last 12 months.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess that's one way to look at it. I will tell you, I find it very surprising that it's even been a last 12 months because I'm just kind of, hyper focused and just go. You know what I mean?
That's great. Time is flying by. So how did you come into this industry and settle here in the Central Florida area?
So how did I come into the industry is a little different than how I settled here in Central Florida. So if my name and accent didn't give it away, I'm a former New Yorker who moved down to beautiful sunny Florida in the midst of COVID. And so that was back in 2020. We were one of the earliest ones to migrate down here. As far as real estate goes, I am an avid pickleball player and a good buddy of mine. Yeah, do you play?
I have played. I cannot say I'm very good or play regularly, but yeah, I've been on the court.
Well, I didn't say I'm good, but I am avid. But I do play a lot. And my good buddy Ed, who is also with Keller Williams, we would play a lot of pickleball. And he said, Vin, I really think with your personality, you do great in real estate. And I pushed it off and pushed it off and pushed it off. And finally an opportunity arose. And I said, you know what, let me jump in and hit the ground running ever since.
You've done a great job. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you got started because it's challenging. So many people get into the real estate world and they find that being a real estate agent is much more difficult than they thought. It's not for everybody, for sure. It takes a certain type of personality and it takes a drive that sometimes people didn't anticipate that they would need in this type of role. So we'll talk about that a bit. But one of the things that sets you apart and that's very near and dear to my heart is the fact that you focus on customer service as being a priority in your business. So let's start by talking a little bit about why you have that perspective. What enabled you to get into the business and then feel like that was going to be one of the things that you focused on?
So I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that my faith, I'm a Bible-believing Christian, my faith drives how I live, how I do business, how I do everything. And I believe you treat others how you want to be treated. And quite frankly, people say you can't sell ice to Eskimos, right? My response to that is, well, I don't think you should even try, because if you could convince an Eskimo to buy ice and he doesn't need it, you lack integrity. And so for me, my drive is I genuinely, passionately care about my customers and their needs. We always put together a list when we're house hunting, what do they want? What do they need? And same thing with my sellers, right? Like when we talk about when we sell your house, where are you going? What are your needs? What are your wants? Those are personal to me. In fact, I've had a deal fall apart where I was more distraught than my actual client because I care that deeply about helping them fulfill their wants and their needs. And so that's the drive behind it. I'm not sure if that fully answers your question.
You have to, you have to come from somewhere, I think, that enables you to have the perspective of empathy, like you're describing, and the desire to put your customers' needs ahead of your own. And not every agent can do that. And I think customer service is an art. And in today's world, sometimes it feels like there's not enough of it. And so I love to hear when agents are very dedicated to it, like you are. I think that makes a big difference in our business.
I think it's a mindset thing. Honestly, I understand a lot of people get into this business because they see the big paychecks. And don't get me wrong, I like being able to provide for my family. I don't want to minimize that. But at the same time, my focus is not on my GCI. My focus, I truly believe this at my core, is that again, going back to my faith, I truly believe that if we put other people's needs before our own, money follows those people. Good things follow those people. And I get to sleep really, really well at night. Okay. So, and look, as you can tell, I haven't really missed any meals. God's been better to me than I deserve. You know, so that really is my outlook. And I ultimately look at my career also as my ministry. You know, I've had the opportunity to share God's love for people more as a realtor than I ever did back years ago when I was in vocational ministry as a pastor. You know, and so that's how I approach this. And I care deeply. And it's not how would I put this? It's not a strategy. So I actually do some training at our local Keller Williams office because I'm part of our ALC. And when I'm training some of the newer agents on negotiating and also on like open house strategies, right? I'm like, I understand you're coming to me for help on how to convert. And you take the stuff that I'm saying as a strategy. It's not a strategy. I genuinely don't want someone to try to buy a home if that home is going to be a curse and not a blessing. And I genuinely want to help educate people on how to change their family tree through home ownership. Real estate is the best asset you could possibly invest in. And I want to help change families' lives for the better. You know, or if you go into our local Keller Williams office and you look at the picture of the ALC members and it has quotes from each of us, you know what my quote says?
What does it say?
It says, I don't live for my resume. I live for my eulogy. And that is the way that I live my life. It's not about, hey, look what Vinny Cordaro accomplished. It's about ultimately 100% of people eventually die. And when we do, all that's left behind is the good that we did for others, that legacy. And that's the moment that I live for, not about the big paychecks and all that stuff. Like I said, I'm not going to complain. It's nice to make money, okay? But that's not my focus. My strategy is to genuinely care deeply for the people standing across from me in every interaction.
Yeah, that level of care is rare, I would say, among not just real estate agents, but in general, to have that level, that depth of desire to want to help, and coming from that perspective. So that certainly sets you apart. If you sat down 10 real estate agents and you asked them, do you provide great customer service? I'd say probably 8 or 9 out of 10 would say yes. But we know that's not really the case typically, because customer service, the level of care and attention, the quality of that service is really in the eye of the customer and how they feel the service was provided to them and what the agent did that was beneficial and offered a level of attention and care that maybe went above and beyond. So for you, what does it mean to go above and beyond, to provide great customer service? Because that is different for everyone. And I know that sometimes that's a hard thing to define.
Sure. So I think there's a lot of different ways to answer that. But I think, to give the big picture, it's being present, being available, and being proactive. None of my customers understand what it's like to do a real estate transaction on their own because I don't let them do that. Like this morning, I was at a walkthrough for a brand new construction home for one of my customers. I go to every one of my inspections personally. I only work with inspectors that are willing to communicate with my buyers, and my buyers are at the inspection too. Even the dad who bought a home 50 years ago and wants to tell the inspector how to do his job. In fact, quick shout out, his name is Kayvon of the West Orange home team. Okay. He does most of my inspections because he has that personality. He has no problem where buyers are following him around the entire time, asking a bajillion questions. And quite honestly, he has my business because he welcomes that. So I'll only align myself with people who are like me. I answer my phone all the time. I tell all my customers, if I am conscious and not with another customer, I will answer your call. Now, I will tell you that took my family some adjusting. Okay. I've been on the phone with clients while online at Disney World. Okay. And of course I've had my family say, hey, we're at Disney. And I'm like, hey, yeah, we get to have such amazing customers and make such great money doing this that daddy can work in Disney World. Woohoo. You know what I mean? So, but I answer the phone because they deserve that. And I tell some of the other realtors in our office, if you're not going to be available before 9, after 5, go sell ice cream. This is the biggest transaction people make in their life. Be available, right? I mean, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying with the realtor. Okay. So, and again, like I said, I hold their hand through the process. I am more of a teacher than a sales guy. So I educate them on the process. I explain to them, hey, on the buy side, our initial offer, our initial accepted offer, that's the highest price you're going to pay. Our first goal is really just to take possession of the property. And ultimately, we still have 2 more opportunities to negotiate between the inspection and the appraisal. I walk them through that. I go to the inspection. I'm hands-on. I explain, hey, this is a small repair. This is a big repair. This is something we should absolutely ask for. This is something that seller might think of us as nitpicking. Okay. And I lead with that, but there's never any questions. Typically, when I ask a buyer or a seller at the end of a get together of some sort, do you have any other questions? There's almost none because I like to proactively prepare them, educate them, show them how everything works. Even, and sorry if I'm being long-winded, but even like the way that I do CMAs when I go to my listing appointments. Okay. I just got a listing in Kissimmee. I walked into that appointment. There were 12 other folders on their table of 12 other agents that they met with. And I walked in there with 0 paperwork, no papers. I just walked in with my laptop. I opened it up. I asked for the Wi-Fi password. And I said, listen, I'm not giving you some pre-made presentation that looks all pretty and hides some of the information so that you think us realtors are smarter or better or more talented than what we're letting on. I'm going to pull back the curtain. I'm going to show you the wizard is just a man, and I'm going to show you how the sausage is made. And I do a live CMA. I open up my seller MLS. I do a live CMA right there with them, walk them through the whole process, show them exactly how it works. And when I'm done with that, I'm like, so let me ask you, with the information I just gave you, what do you think we should be pricing? Like that's right. And the way that I operate is it's not combative. It's not sales. It's collaboration. I'm not trying to convince them to underprice or overprice their home. I'm collaborating with them to say, listen, here's everything I'm going to offer you. Here's the marketing that I do. My background is digital marketing long before I was in real estate. Okay. So I pay for targeted ads. I do a lot of that background stuff. I make videos for each of my listings. I go above and beyond, and I do what I know for a fact other realtors are charging a higher commission percentage to add on those things. I do those things standard because I think that's what my customers deserve.
I know also beyond the going the extra mile, which is really what you were saying, which is great because very few people go the extra mile. As my father-in-law says, there's very little traffic on the extra mile, which is true. So you also believe very, very heavily in great client communication. And I think, especially in today's world, it does seem like communication sometimes falls by the wayside. I mean, we know as industry insiders, sometimes even getting another agent to respond to us can be challenging, in terms of communication when we need answers quickly and we need questions answered for our customers. So what are your best practices for clear and consistent communication with your customers? And how do you build trust that way?
I think telling them what they don't think they will ever hear from a realtor up front, properly setting expectations, I think shocks most people I talk to. Where I'll say, look, if you would like to talk to me every day because you like me, sure, give me a call every day, no problem. I'm not going to have an update for you every day because I'm not going to lie to you and give you some false hope. I will tell you it's a tougher market. I will tell you that every time I have an update, you're going to be the first person I communicate with. But if you don't hear from me, then it means there's no update. With that being said, if you have to get this thing sold quickly, if we go 10 days without a showing or 10 showings without an offer, I am going to call you to price drop if we have to move quickly. Okay. If we don't have to move quickly in this market, like I just went under contract on a home that was sitting on market for 111 days. And I marketed the crap out of this thing. And this is a repeat customer of mine who he's already bought 2 homes with me. Now we're under contract to sell his home that he raised his 2 kids in. Okay. And I said to him, listen, I don't want you to give your house away. If you're in a rush to sell it, we could price drop all day. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just telling you the market is where it's at right now. We're going to find the right guy. And what happened is we did. We're pretty close to where he wanted to be price-wise. And we recently got a full asking price offer. And I told him, I said, see, patience pays off. Don't just price drop. So communication to me is about setting proper expectations. So I have no problem saying, hey, the market is not doing great right now in this particular area, this particular price range. So I'm just letting you know there's a chance that we don't talk for a week or two. And that's, in other words, that's me not reaching out to you. If you're going to call me whenever you want. I'll answer the phone and I'll tell you exactly what I've been telling you. But you can rest assured if there are any changes at all, or if in my expertise, if I believe it's time for a price reduction, you will not be able to avoid my phone call. And that's, to me, that's a big part of it. Then on the buy side, again, I make sure they understand the process so they know what the next steps are. They know the typical time frames. And I sit down and I educate. So quite honestly, there's never really any surprises for any of my buyers or sellers. It's just pretty clearly laid out.
That's good. Yeah. No, I think that setting those expectations and then exceeding the expectations when you can is important. I think that so often, not just even with communication, but where agents overpromise and underdeliver, and industry professionals like yourself who really value that customer service and dedicate yourselves to achieving your customers' goals and going above and beyond. It makes such a difference to the customer, it makes such a difference to their experience. And instead of looking back at a real estate transaction and feeling like, oh, it was such a burden, it was so stressful, they feel like, gosh, I'm so happy I had this trusted professional by my side the whole time to walk me through it and to keep me on track. So it is so important to have someone like you involved in the transaction. It makes such a difference.
I appreciate that. And I will tell you, I believe in blunt honesty. Not rude, but blunt. Okay. So I recently had a closing in Apopka, if you look at my stats. And when I went to that listing appointment, okay, I ran the comps. And quite honestly, I believe we should have been priced lower than where we were. And I sat down with my laptop, showed them everything, just like that goes, right? And they literally said to me, well, Vinny, we understand it's probably worth X, but do you think we could get X? And I said, oh yeah, absolutely you can. In about 3 years. And they laughed, I laughed, and they said, well, we'd like to try to go for that anyway. And I said, listen, guys, I love overpriced listings because my face and phone number is in front of your neighbors for a very, very long time. So that's a good thing for me. I appreciate that. I'm like, but if you want to sell this home, I do think that's overpriced. However, if this is the price you want to go at market, you will still get my best efforts. You will still get the paid ads. You'll still get the video. You'll still get the best of me and my strategy. Well, I then said to them, you do have to understand though, even if somebody gives us a full asking price offer, we still have the appraisal to contend with unless it's a cash deal. And they're probably going to want an appraisal too, right?
That's right.
Great, no problem. Well, turns out I was shocked at what happened. We ended up in a multiple offer situation 22 days in this market. Okay. Yeah. And so the buyer's lender called me in the multiple offer situation to tell me that their buyer was solid financially and they were going to put a huge down payment. And, you know, if that helps in the decision making. And so I was light on my feet and said to her, I said, listen, that's great. I'll tell you what, being transparent with you, you guys are not the best offer. But if you and the agent can convince the buyers to waive appraisal, I might be able to convince my sellers to go with you guys instead, since they're so strong financially. She got them to do that, and we just closed. I don't know what that house was going to appraise for, but just being transparent, I don't think it would have been, you know, but they were willing to pay for it, and, you know, it is what it is. But, and again, I was fully transparent with them, fully transparent with the buyer's agent. Listen, I don't think this will appraise. Fully transparent with my sellers. I don't think this will appraise. And at the end of the day, they made the decision that they made. But for me, I sleep really well at night knowing I didn't take advantage of anybody. I didn't screw anybody. I was completely honest, even with both sides. And look, you know the deal. In Florida, the standard relationship is transaction broker, right? So we need to be honest. We need to be transparent. We need to not act like this weird game of Gnosticism, like we have some super intelligence or something out there and playing games with people's lives. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, it's much more of a service role than it is a sales role, kind of what you said before, that you don't really consider yourself a salesperson. And we're all working towards the same goal when we're in a transaction. We all want it to close successfully, the buyers, the sellers, both agents. And it really does help when there's a feeling of more collaboration and the ability of collective problem solving than to be at odds and have it be more of a, you know, a contentious sort of transaction. It always seems to go better for so many reasons.
Yeah. I mean, and I've had a couple of the contentious ones, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Because at the end of the day, you know, I've had to honestly do the work of both sides on a couple of deals, even though I wasn't paid on both sides, to keep things alive, you know, because it's not the buyer's fault or the seller's fault that one of the agents is only in it for the money. You know what I mean?
Right. Let's dive in real quick to what we're seeing locally, because we know we may have people listening from all over, but real estate's a very local business. And here in Orlando, it's a unique market. So I know a lot of people ask about, you know, what our impressions are of the marketplace. And then in addition to that, where we feel things are heading, because people are trying to time things correctly. So if people ask you, you know, what are your feelings about the marketplace today? And where do you think we're going over the next few months? How do you usually respond to that right now?
Sure. So as you said, it's all local, right? So even Orlando as a whole is a difficult thing to answer because there are some communities that the economy is not going to impact, that nothing, the interest rates aren't going to impact. I mean, I think of like Kings Point and Windermere, right? They're not experiencing a deep buyer's market like parts of Davenport and parts of Claremont are. So it is hyper localized. Let's be honest. We live where the world vacations. Okay. And the average person who wants to own a vacation property near Disney, we're talking about the Disney bubble. You got, let's say, at maximum an hour. Outside of that, most of those communities in there are going to be somewhat stable just because it's around Disney, Universal, you know, all that sort of stuff. Within there, there's going to be communities that right now, quite frankly, are struggling. And there are some communities that had hyperinflated prices. That's true. That is true. And they're kind of returning back to earth. So, you know, how do I address that? I mean, so I'm in Claremont, and right now Claremont is experiencing crazy amounts of growth, and there's a reason for that. So right now they're building the 516 toll road, which is going to connect 27 and 429. You've got Schofield, you've got Sawgrass Bay Boulevard is extending the whole way. They're building the Olympus project over there, largest master plan community built around sports and athletic training. Essentially, the Horizon West area of Winter Garden is folding into that part of Claremont, and it is causing prices to increase significantly in that area. You've got several builders building around Olympus. Toll Brothers just threw their hat in the ring. There's a lot going on. So Claremont is this particular area of Claremont, because you got to understand, Claremont is an hour from Claremont. Okay.
Right.
So this particular part of Claremont is experiencing incredible growth, while West Claremont, or, the like Mineola, Groveland, a lot of the different areas in there are experiencing a steep buyer's market, pretty crazy buyer's market right now in your more normative areas. So, and then you also have some homes in some communities that are sitting on market forever right now. And I think some of that is some of these sellers regret not selling in 22, 23, and they think they're going to get 22, 23 prices, So, but as far as the direction where it's going now, if I could expand out a little bit, if we are going to talk about Orlando as a whole, I'll tell you what I'm seeing a lot of. I'm talking to a lot of out-of-state buyers, and I'm talking to people coming here from Bradenton, Sarasota, Tampa, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, parts of Florida that are either becoming increasingly, where people are fearful of hurricanes, or increasingly expensive. What you could get in Claremont, Groveland, Hunters Creek, even Lake Nona and Dr. Phillips, which is more expensive compared to Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Boca. People that are coming over here with that kind of money are getting mini mansions, right? So I would say right now, because Orlando is still affordable for now, it is drawing in people who are being outpriced for the amount of house they want in Sarasota, Miami, and definitely New York, New Jersey, Chicago, So I have a client right now who just moved here from LA, and he found me through YouTube, and he told me he's selling his small home in LA for $2.2 million. His job transferred him here, and he's concerned, Vin, do you think I could afford anything in Orlando when I sell my home? I'm like, how much are you going to have after? He's like, probably about $2 million. I'm like, yeah, I think you could afford something in Orlando. Right, yeah. I think you're going to be just fine. So, but a lot of people don't realize, well, they're starting to realize Orlando's affordability compared to other areas. You can get a lot more bang for your buck in this area, but that also is driving up prices too.
Yeah, it's not as much of a value proposition as it was 10 years ago here, where comparatively, we were so far less expensive than, of course, Miami and South Florida, but even the Tampa region, we're much less expensive. And now Orlando the values have really come up. And so I do know that, some people who are looking at possibly relocating to the Orlando area previously, then they put it on hold, and now they're revisiting that idea. They look at it and go, wait a minute, this used to be way less expensive to live there than it is now. So I think we're in this weird state right now that we are way more affordable than certain parts of the country. But in the state of Florida itself, things have gotten a lot more expensive around Orlando. And so we're a very changing, growing metro area. And with that growth, of course, that demand comes an increase in value. And so it is a very interesting market. Like you said, Orlando is not only, it's in itself, the region is unique, but each specific neighborhood and zip code is unique as well. So it's that one more reason why it's important to have a great local agent who understands those things.
Well, and I'll tell you a little hidden gem for my buyers that have lower budgets still. And when I say lower budgets, I mean in the mid to high twos. And there's a little hidden gem off of 48. You've got Yalaha. Say that 10 times fast. And that's right next to Okahumpka, which is right next to Howie in the Hills and Leesburg. So there are some brand new builds going in there that are in the high twos, low threes. And then the southeastern part of Leesburg, there's also homes in the twos that are not only affordable, but very nice. And that puts you about 40, 50 minutes from Disney. I drive a Dodge Challenger, a Scat Pack, 6-speed. So really 45 minutes for the average person is maybe 25 for me. I'm just kidding, half kidding. So, but yeah, so there are still parts that are, I would say, very affordable compared to the national average, where you could still be in the Disney bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's something for everyone. I think that's one of the neat things about this area is if you're looking for that relocation $2 million home from California, you can find a gorgeous property for $2 million here and up. I mean, we have properties, north of 10 million as well. I mean, there's a luxury market, but there is an opportunity to get a great property at a good value as long as you're a little creative with location. Whether you're looking for something urban or something more rural, whether you're looking for something that is near Disney and the theme parks, or you're looking for something outside the tourist corridor and more of a hometown feel to it, there's absolutely something for every buyer here, which I love. I think that's a great thing about Orlando.
Well, and that's where I'll push hard for Claremont. So part of the reason why no matter what happens in my life, we're staying in Claremont is we've got it all. So I'm 20 minutes from Disney. I'm 20 minutes from Orlando. I'm 20 minutes from Universal. But I'm not bumping into tourists. I'm only bumping into locals and my neighbors. We have a great downtown. We've got the chain of lakes. Every Sunday is the farmers market. It's got that small town feel, and yet we've got lower property taxes than a lot of the other counties in the area. And you've got actual space between homes in most of your communities here, because really, it's not that long ago, we were just rolling hills of orange groves. And the only reason that there's even a bunch of communities here is because of that freeze, a few of the freezes that destroyed a lot of those groves. And so you've got newer homes that still have space between them, and you're still close to everything. And guess what? You're only, because again, you're in kind of the northwest part of Orlando, if we even wanted to call it that. There's literally 20 minutes from us a working cattle ranch, right? You've got Lake Ridge Winery, you've got campgrounds, you have everything to suit everyone around the corner from you. So like if you don't want to live city life, but live close enough to enjoy and visit city life, Claremont works. If you want to be close to rural, but not, hearing cows and goats in backyard, which by the way, West Claremont off of 33, you have agricultural lots, which is actually becoming really, really popular too. The number of people I talk to that want to buy agricultural lots so they could have their Highland cows and all those TikTok trends that are going on is crazy. People looking to do family compounds and that kind of stuff. Well, in Claremont, you could literally be 30 minutes from Disney World and have a family compound in the middle of nowhere with a dirt road. Like, that's crazy. So,
It is very unique.
I'm a fan.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's becoming much harder to find that, as urban sprawl continues. So I think that's true. I think that's a gem. That area is very, very desirable for people for a number of reasons. Vinny, when we're talking about these things with customers who listen to the show, a lot of them want to reach out to the guests because they have additional questions. They might want your expertise on something. People listening may want to pick your brain about stuff. What's the best way for people to reach out and get in touch with you?
Well, I give everybody my personal cell phone number. So you might be thinking this guy has a New York area code, even though I live in Claremont, Florida. So I apologize in advance. I've had this number since I'm 16 years old and it's not changing. So my number is, it's 631-834-0816. You can call or text. Like I said, if I'm awake and not with another client, I will answer. And then my email is Vinny, which is VINNY, at livinginorl.com. So it's like living in Orlando, but without the ando, right? And that is my website. My website is livinginorl.com. If you go on there, you'll be able to also see my YouTube content, social media. I do a lot of live videos on Facebook, and my more long form content is on YouTube with house tours and educational videos.
That's great. Well, a lot of resources for people to check out and to dive deeper into your expert knowledge and expertise here in the local area, especially in Claremont. So if anyone's looking in that area, Vinny's certainly a terrific resource for you. So again, Vinny Cordaro, thank you so much for joining us today on Real Estate on the Up. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Hey, pleasure's all mine, man. Again, I appreciate the invitation and love the show. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. We'll see you next time on Real Estate on the Up. As we conclude another eye-opening episode of Real Estate on the Up, I want to express my appreciation for joining us. Thank you for being a valuable part of the Real Estate on the Up community. Your time and engagement mean the world, so make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your real estate goals are my priority, and my team and I are here to provide the personalized attention and service that have earned us high recognition. If you have questions, need guidance, or are ready to make a move, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just a message away. I'm Kyle Madorin, one of Rate My Agent's top 100 in the United States, signing off. Until next time, take care and make those real estate dreams a reality.